Kim.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Okay, so I'm really happy that Kim Carroll has agreed to join us today. And we're really excited to launch our new series called People of PQMD to show you the people who are behind all of the logos and who are involved with all the organizations doing incredible work. And Kim Carroll is the CEO of Heart to Heart International based in Kansas City. And we are really excited that you agreed to join us. So thank you so much right off the bat for your time and for all of the hard work that your organization is doing.
Oh, thank you for the invite.
You're
Pleasure to be here.
Great. You're very, very welcome. So I guess for my first question, in looking through your bio and on your resume, I noticed that you have a very long and illustrious career in the pharmaceutical industry and medical device industry. And I'm wondering, what was it that brought you from that industry to head up an international nonprofit?
So it's an interesting question because a lot of the Heart to Heart staff actually started as volunteers, which is how I started. But I had, as you mentioned, I had worked in the pharmaceutical industry. I started right out of graduate school and worked there for almost 30 years. And I retired. And like I think several other people in the PQMD organization, I was a retirement failure. I got bored. I tried consulting, and I just happened to have some long connections to Heart, some legacy connections. And so I started as a volunteer and went from that role and capacity on to working here part-time. Then I became the chief operating officer and eventually the CEO. And really what drew me was the sense of purpose and the mission. In the pharmaceutical industry, I think there's so much good that happens as a result of the innovation and the incredible work that the global pharma companies do every day. And this was another way for me to extend that work and bring more value to people's access to health, which I think I've always been a part of.
Yeah, wow, what a fantastic success story that is. And I do know that Heart to Heart has that policy of having volunteers come and really sort of build them up through the infrastructure, which I think is a really interesting business model and obviously works incredibly well. So you have been the head of Heart to Heart now for the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. And in those 4 years, or possibly even before then, Heart to Heart has gone through historic hurricanes, historic epidemics, and sort of global humanitarian crisis, and now, of course, a crisis that is hitting the entire world, which is the COVID-19 epidemic. And so how has the pandemic in particular changed the way that Heart to Heart works and even what Heart to Heart is doing going forward?
Yeah, that's a really relevant topic, I think, for everybody today, not just for Heart to Heart. But, you know, this disaster response in general, when we responded to Ebola in Liberia or to cholera in Haiti or to Hurricane Dorian most recently, we typically respond from a position of stability. So we're, a disaster, even though it may seem widespread, is usually contained within some type of geography. And all of us, many of the organizations that are part of PQMD that respond to those disasters, come in, we collaborate, but we have a stable home base, typically, if you will. Even if the disaster happens here in Kansas, it's usually not right in our offices. And so this became, escalated very quickly. We actually started, and in a way, it was a great, in many ways, it was a great experience. Our first element of response to COVID-19 was under the WHO umbrella, and we sent a team to the Marshall Islands to actually help them prepare. At the time, they did not have, they had one person under investigation, but they didn't have any COVID positive cases on the islands, but their healthcare infrastructure was very, very fragile. So we collected a team of infectious disease experts and sent one of our logistics leads, and they actually traveled RMI to help the islands get prepared. In complicating things, they were also in the midst of a dengue outbreak. So they were struggling to begin with. So we learned a lot about COVID-19 in that process. And then the Marshall Islands were getting ready to shut down. So we brought the team back and brought a lot of what they learned getting ready for that deployment. And that's when things started to break here in the US. So how are things different? Well, we spend a lot of time on Zoom like everybody else, but we're still doing many of the same things that we always do. Our warehouse is shipping product, hygiene supplies, which are needed now more than ever before. So we've distributed over 40,000 hygiene kits just in the last few months. Our mobile medical unit is deployed. Instead of going to Florida or Texas, it's deployed here in Kansas City. And it is providing medical care, as well as we're operating a testing site, COVID testing site, down at a campus that serves the local homeless population. When the Kansas City hospitals started preparing for the outbreak, they had to suspend their mobile medical service that would go out and do outreach into the homeless community. So what we've done is fill that gap, and that ensures that for basic medical needs, these individuals aren't going into the ER urgent care centers. We're also testing, and anybody that is a PUI is then placed in a local hotel. It's actually just a block from where the homeless campus is, or the campus that's caring for the homeless population. And then we're doing we're doing a telehealth wellness check on them every day until they get their results. So product is still ongoing, coming in and out the door. That's product donated by members of PQMD. Hygiene kits are still being built with volunteers, just not as fast by not as many and in a very spread out fashion. And we're still providing direct medical care. We've also partnered with IMC to deploy medical volunteers to New York City. They were working in 2 hospitals in Queens and then also to Chicago. So we're responding locally, which we typically don't have to do. We're responding across the US, and we've responded, and actually internationally. We're still working in Haiti. So it's the same, but it's all a lot harder. You know, the direct steps don't exist exactly like they used to, but there are ways to solve things. I think the other thing we're doing right now is just starting to think, okay, well, what happens if we do have a big hurricane season in the Caribbean, and how do we address that? So I think probably familiar themes to what every other leader in PQMD is talking about. And I look forward to sharing conversations with all of them in the weeks and months ahead, so we can all continue to learn from one another. That's what we've always done at PQMD.
Yeah. Oh, that's great to hear. So I do have one, well, I have another question about that. So HHI is so prevalent around the world, and a number of different programs and responding to all kinds of disasters, but aside from disasters, humanitarian crisis and ongoing humanitarian crisis. So I'm wondering what's going on with those activities and those programs, and how are you balancing that sort of continuity of care and continuity of access for some of the at-risk communities globally with what's going on in the United States?
Yeah, that's a tough area, and I think that some things are continuing. So, for example, we have a partnership with the CDC. Where in FIA, where we're doing HIV monitoring in Africa. A lot of that can't happen right now. So we have 20 fellows in 7 countries. So we're utilizing this time for training, but that will restart at some point. We're looking in, for example, in Haiti, where we have a small footprint. And while reported numbers of COVID in Haiti are low, and the underlying healthcare infrastructure is just as collapsed as it ever was in Haiti. And so we're doing a lot of starting up in partners with a couple of other local faith-based organizations, which is has strong presence in Haiti, doing hygiene training down there. That's relevant for them no matter what, especially with the existence of cholera there. So it's challenging. We're taking the programs we have and either trying to continue them. While Puerto Rico is not international, it's not mainland US. We are doing virtual monitoring and with community health workers, and that's an existing program that will continue. So we're doing the best we can. Fortunately, technology helps, but there are limitations.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for sharing that. I think that other organizations certainly will have that in common. So you had mentioned that being part of PQMD was something that you valued because it gave you an opportunity to discuss some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that are going on globally. So I guess I would like if you could expand a little bit on sort of why being a member of PQMD is important and beneficial to HHI.
Well, I think that, you know, we're all of the PQMD members share some element of vision and mission in terms of what we're trying to do, whether it's the corporate partners or the NGO partners. We're trying to make a difference in a worldwide community in a way that's professional, that has the kinds of standards that we all agree need to be in place. And so I think we're all elevated by spending time with one another and talking about what are some of the best practices, how do we help one another. There are very few organizations that operate independently on any global initiative. And so we're going to be stronger in working in the form of partnerships. And partnerships don't just happen overnight because you get a grant or there's an event that happens. Partnerships are built on trust. They're built on working with one another, knowing each other's strengths. And so, you know, knowing how style fits in, there's organizational culture. And so that happens over time. Organizations do change, people change, but you know, having that continuous presence, I think, helps us know, you know, when we need something, we have relationships that we can reach out and call, or when we have a resource or an asset that we can't use, but we know somebody else is responding, we can reach out and say, hey, we've got X, Y, Z, you know, can it help? And just spending time with one another, you know, is valuable. We can't do it all the time. I mean, there's always, you know, we all have our own organizations and operations to run. But the times that I've personally spent at PQMD have been valuable. They've given me an opportunity to get to know other organizations better, to get to know individuals better. And I don't think I've ever been to a PQMD meeting where as a result, I haven't taken back a list of things to follow up on. And it's not always meetings. You know, I'm a member of the Standards Committee. We have several members of our staff that are members of ongoing committees. There are things we all do well, but it's always a really good practice to evaluate what you do and how you do it and learn from one another. And we're in Lenexa, Kansas. There aren't a lot of other organizations like us to talk to about this. And so having that worldwide connection is incredibly valuable. And you know, our commitment is to contribute as much as we give. And so I think that you know, we see this as a way for us to all be better at what we do.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, I agree. I think that is that's wonderful to hear. And I know that Heart to Heart has been a significant contributor to the work that PQMD does on a regular basis. And so we're really excited. And I think also you bring some very unique capabilities and unique activities to the organization as well, which we greatly appreciate. With that, I want to say thank you so much for your time today. I know that it's incredibly busy for everybody, and I really appreciate your taking time out to talk to us about Heart to Heart International, and just to get to know a little bit more about you.
Thanks so much.